We just had our last tournament before FNCS and it answered a lot of questions. How is Savage's new trio looking? Where are they dropping? Who is Mongrel's new trio? We also had a very weird tournament on NA. Almost all the big teams didn't make finals. No Peterbot, no Poyo, no Muzz, no Cooper. It was for a very strange reason that I'll explain later in the video. We also have the new update that has big changes to Reboots. We now have upgraded Reboots that I think are extremely overpowered. I'm also going to explain the format for any of you guys are confused because FNCS starts today. There's a lot to talk about. Let's jump into it. Before we talk about the new trios and everything else going on, I want to talk about the update. There wasn't a lot in this update, but there was one very big change that is going to heavily change the competitive meta right before FNCS. Buying reboots and enhanced reboots. So you can now buy reboots and you can have enhanced reboots for 500 gold. What this means is your teammates will respawn with a blue hollow twister, 2 big pots, and 450 material for 500 gold each, and you don't have to have their reboot card. This is kind of crazy. We literally saw this come into effect in off-spawn fights already in the Eval Cup, especially teams that get gold out of the vault. It is going to be very, very valuable for teams that have excess gold. So teams like Peterbot, like Acorn, Clicks, all the teams that are going the mythic POIs, especially Peterbot's team, because they get 2 vaults, they get the train and Crime City. It basically means as long as each player on your team is carrying 1,000 gold, your team can't really die as long as one of them gets away. So for teams that take a lot of aggressive mid-game fights like Peterbot, Cold, and Ritual, as long as one of them gets out with 1,000 gold, they can always buy back their teammates. You don't have to fight for the card anymore. It doesn't matter if the team is camping your card. If your team's really split and one player gets caught out, you can just reboot them further away. They'll get material, big pods, and the AR to get back in the game. All you gotta do is find them a shotgun and they're basically back in it. This is a really big change and a very strong buff to teams that have excess gold. Now, there is more gold around the map now. More POIs are getting added gold and other crazy stuff in the update. So maybe coming into Grands, there'll be more and more gold on the map. They're adding more of the safes around the map into the POIs. So it's not just the mythic teams that get the gold, but they're the main team that gets so much gold they can spend it at the black market, get all the loot, and then still have some to spare. Again, it's worth pointing out when you get rebooted, you don't lose your gold. When you die, it doesn't drop. So as long as your team has enough gold to reboot you, they can reboot you back with an assault rifle and some meds, and then you can buy whatever else you need at the black market if you still have gold left over. So the mythic and vault POIs got even stronger in this update. One other big change to do with the black markets is the exotics now rotate between the black market, not the mythics, just the exotics. So the main change this has is a bit of a buff to Crime City and a little bit of a buff to Mars Meadows, because now the mythic Chug Jug, or the exotic Chug Jug, sorry, moves around between those black markets. So if you're going Mars Meadows, you now have a chance of getting the exotic Chug Jug rather than it being at Magic Mosses every single game. Now, a lot of people are saying it wasn't meant to function like this in competitive. This is only meant to be in pubs, so we could see this change in the future. I'm not sure exactly what's going on with it, but if it stays that way, that's a pretty big buff to the other spots. Now, it is a bit of a nerf to Magic Mosses, but because the mythics don't move, because the mythic collateral is still going to be there, because they still have the gold splashes and the hero grenades, the Magic Mosses black market's still the best, but the chance to get a guaranteed exotic Chug Jug is a very big buff to the other spots around the map. In other competitive news, we also had the exciting announcement that we have Marius, Swizzy, and Poyo all joining Gentle Mates. Now, you probably heard of Gentle Mates by now, massive French org who signed a bunch of EU talent. Nikov does watch parties of all their players live on Twitch. You've probably been watching Mustache in the past. They've got a bunch of French players. Them now signing Poyo means they're moving into NA. Nikov has announced that he will be doing watch parties on his Twitch channel for Poyo's POV on NA, but it's only going to be for FNCS, not Cash Cup. So super excited to see. I love this model of orgs because one of the biggest problems of Fortnite is having sustainability within the orgs. Either the players end up getting screwed or the org runs out of money and everybody loses. With Gentle Mates arrangement, they sign the players, they pay them a salary. Those players then agree to stream their POV to Nikov to do watch parties. They don't have to have comms, so they can still talk to their teammates. It doesn't mess up their team opportunities. They're just playing with gameplay, sending it to Nikov, and then that's how then now Gentle Mates makes money. It's a fantastic model. I'm really excited to see what they do in NA. I'm guessing they're going to want to sign more talent. They're probably not going to do watch parties just for one POV, as good as Poyo is, but really exciting news there from Gentle Mates, and I'm super excited to see what they do going forward. All right, let's talk trios ahead of FNCS. I was expecting a bit of a snake eating today, and it hasn't really happened. I'm going to bed soon. I'm filming this video now. I might wake up and there's entirely new trios playing FNCS, but as of right now, I can't really see that much. The only big change I want to let you guys know about since I last did my video, we didn't have Craze being picked up by Reed and Cooper in the end. It ended up being Curly. So Craze has found himself without a trio going into FNCS. It is Reed, Curly, and Cooper. So that changed after I made my video. I make videos and post them like 4 hours later, and somehow still a bunch of stuff has changed. But that was the main adjustment I want to talk about in NA. I'll talk about some of the new trios on NA in a second. I want to kick off with EU because we have Mongrel's new trio who ended up making finals of Eval Cup. It is going to be Mongrel, Nako, and Turtle. Now, I don't know where this trio is going to stick together. They were just trialing out for Eval. They made finals, didn't do extremely hot in the finals. They did make a couple end games, and one of which they came close to winning, but unfortunately, Turtle's PC crashed. They look strong. My biggest concern with this trio is Nako is a very, very safe IGL. He plays very, very safe, more classical Fortnite with playing out your mats, positioning really, really well. So coming into endgame, they usually are down a little bit on Surge, and they do need a bit of materials, which requires then Mongrel and Turtle to try to get refreshes. And as I've talked about, I think endgame refresh is one of Mongrel's bigger weaknesses. Again, it's not a huge issue. He's going to have to get better at it, and it's something to work on. And with Nako, he's going to have to get really good at it, but I don't know if that style complements each other, but we could still find out. Their first time playing together, the vibes were good. They seem solid. We'll have to see whether they queue up FNCS together. We also got our first showing of Vidil, Mr. Savage, and Rezon against Div 1 players in set lobbies. They made finals, and they won a game. They got a 15 elimination win. They also got a 5 elimination 7th, and then 2 33rd places. So you can probably imagine what happened here. They went down on spawn. They decided to go Mars Meadows. They're contesting Fredoxy. They managed to win one of the games on spawn, and one of them was kind of like a split. They took down one of Fredoxy's teammates, but then they went down. They rebooted. They got third party, but they definitely won one of the spawn fights outright, and the one time they won, they went on to get a 15 kill win. Now, what does this mean for Vidil, Savage, and Rezon's drop spots going forward? It's a little bit interesting. Because Fredoxy has actually been helping Vidil and Rezon with their fights at Mars Meadows, they don't feel it's right to contest him in grand finals, but they want to go Mars Meadows in opens and group stages as long as they don't get in Fredoxy's group. Some people find this really strange, but this happened a fair bit in the past. Fredoxy's like being the off-spawn coach of EU. It's why he is so good off-spawn. And Vidil, Savage, and Rezon don't want to land on someone that's coached them and helped them to then turn around and contest them. It just seems like, you know, poor sportsmanship, but that's only if they don't get in the same group. So I don't know what's going to happen if Vidil, Savage, and Rezon do get in the same group as Fred. There's 3 groups. They are seeded, but it's very, very hard to predict where you're going to place to try to like avoid seeding. It's not as simple as just like first, second, third. Obviously, it's a battle royale. You could finish anywhere on the leaderboard, and it shuffles up very, very rarely. So I'm kind of interested to see what this means. I don't know if they have a backup drop. I don't know what their plan is once they get to grands. I'm guessing in grands, they're just going to find a drop that maybe a good team doesn't qualify for. If there's an okay spot and the main team that goes that doesn't qualify, they try and claim it and hope their reputation is enough to hold down the drop spot as they work on figuring out how to then play that drop spot. Going to be an interesting strategy, but honestly, it's as good of a strategy as any. They formed a last minute. They don't have a drop spot. Savage was retired. Vidil was on another region, so they just didn't really have a drop locked down. So they don't really have too many other options. They were doing well at Mars Meadows, but making it off spawn, you know, 2 out of the 4 games, and one of them was a split. It's not the greatest record. There's a reason why Veno's team wanted to stop contesting Fredoxy. It doesn't often end well for teams that are doing it, so I can respect them wanting to figure out a different strategy, but Mars Meadows is a good opens drop. Vidil and Rezon have a lot of experience there. Hopefully the odds are on their side. They don't get in Fredoxy's group and they can go somewhere else, but there are normally a lot more drop spots in groups because a lot of the tier 1 teams aren't in it. Let's say you get into a group that has Fredoxy but it doesn't have Malabuka. Who goes Lone Wolf Lair? You can try and claim that and see if you can hold it down. So their drop spot situation isn't as bad as it looks, but it's also not amazing. As far as who else got the wins on EU, we had Vanya, Pixie, and Marius with the new signing, 2 Gentlemates, getting 2 wins on the day. They got a 14 elim win and a 17 elim win. So Vanya's team looking disgusting right now. The other win went to Dynas, Giras, and Franik, the Polish team that just came top 10 in the last Div 1 finals as well. And then Mr. Savage, like I talked about. Now, we had Queasy Mustache and Thomas HD. Don't freak out. That is not some insane snake hitting the day before FNCS. Swizzy got dropped. Apparently, almost all of Serbia's internet went out, which meant Panzer couldn't play, which meant that Thomas and Uppel needed a third anyway, and it meant that Swizzy couldn't play. So Thomas was like, hey, I'll just play with Queasy and Mustache, and then Uppel, you can go find another team to play with as well. So they didn't break up. They didn't split. There wasn't some crazy snake hitting. Just the country's internet went down, so no one living in Serbia was able to play apparently, or very few people. Now, this goes for EU as well, but mostly NA, we were missing some really big teams from Eval Cup finals. On EU, we're missing Malibuca, we're missing Veno's team, we're missing Shark's team, but over on NA, we're missing Peterbot's team, we're missing Acorn's team, we're missing Cooper's team, Kanada's team, Reed's team. It was one of the least stacked finals I've ever seen on NA, and one of the main reasons for this was apparently a tweaker that a lot of the Fortnite pros use on NA. The most recent update messed up with the TPM secure boot thing, and they couldn't queue up for the tournament. So a bunch of pro teams started like 15 or 30 minutes late, and in an Eval Cup, we only have 2 hours to qualify. There's no skill-based matchmaking, and elims are only worth 1. It's really hard to come back from starting that late. So unfortunately, a bunch of big teams didn't qual. I was thinking maybe if they actually played poorly, we might see some snake innings from that, but if they all played well and they just didn't qual because they didn't have enough time, I don't really think it's going to do too much. We did have Clicks, Higgs, and Yomzo drop 3 40 bombs in a row in opens. Just there's something about this team when it's Eval Cup, they just turn up. They did get 1 win in the finals as well. They got a 22 elim win in the last game. They also got a 12 elim fourth. The other 3 wins went to Vorks, Evolved, and Creep, an NA West team. We had Noxy, Mason, and Virgo, a new team on Central. We've seen these kind of players switch around a lot. And then Enact, Epic Whale, and Z-Link, another NA West team. So it was a bit of a weird finals. I don't want to go too much into the finals as if like it's a, a good indicator for FNCS. The last tournament, did Pete do this? What about Poyo? Basically, none of them were playing. It's one of the weirder tournaments I've watched, but it was a good last showing before FNCS. Again, I don't think we're going to see anything too crazy come from this. I saw Muzz, Rise, and Yapko struggling, and I thought, that's it. Muzz is getting dropped again. They're going to pick up Curly, but no, Muzz came in and said we couldn't start on time, so we played well. It was just no one could play. So a bit unfortunate. I've talked about the impact of like leaking and stuff, tweaks like that in the past, where unfortunately if you get a tweak that just, has issues with an update on your PC, it can cause major dramas in tournaments. This is why normally there isn't updates the same day as tournaments. Not going to say all tweaks are terrible. You should never update your PC. I know there is a balance, I think, to be found between, optimizing your PC, make sure it runs properly, but not running into issues like this where it messes up entire tournaments. It's probably just unfortunate timing. Clearly, if all of the best pros in NA are using this tweaker, it's someone who has good tweaks and people trust, but just unfortunate result. At least it happened in the Eval Cup and not FNCS. Like I said, FNCS is starting today. It might not feel like it. This is the play-in, so it's going to be a 2-day tournament today and tomorrow. It's 3 hours, 10 games. The top 99 teams from the 2 days combined are going to get seeded into groups 1, 2, and 3. Anyone who doesn't get top 99, their FNCS isn't over. They can play in the last chance qualifier next week. The last chance qualifier is open to anyone outside of Division 1 as well. So if you're Division 2 and Division 3, this is your chance to play in FNCS. You can only play in the last chance qualifier. You have to be Division 1 if you want to play in the play-in. So unfortunately, if you guys have come back to Fortnite, you're looking forward to playing FNCS, you can only play the first stage if you're Division 1. Now, last chance qualifiers to play for only 1 of 3 spots, so it's extremely difficult to make it through last chance qualifiers. So any team you see that doesn't get top 99, they're either going to split and make a new team, or they have to battle for 1 of 3 spots. The other 30 spots get through the group stages, which is going to be basically heats, semifinals. That's what the top 99 teams make.